Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London again with another watch review, and today we're looking at the Rolex Yacht-Master II in yellow gold. Rolex is famous for all different types of sports watches, the Submariner, the Daytona being the most famous. The first Yacht-Master model, which was released in 1992, looked very similar to the Submariner. And that first Yacht-Master had a 39.5mm case diameter. Since that first release in 1992, there were a few different alterations to the Yacht-Master, a couple smaller ones, a 35mm for smaller wrists, and also a women's version as well. They came in all sorts of different variations with dials, precious metals, bimetals, etc. But in 2007, Rolex revealed the Yacht-Master II, which is what we're looking at here today. And then in 2010 is when they actually released the watch. The Yacht-Master II came in two different types of metals, yellow gold and white gold. And then later on, a couple of years later, they introduced the rose gold and steel bimetal version. And then a few years after that, they released the all steel version. It's a much larger case size compared to the previous Yacht-Master I. This case size is 44mm versus the older one, which is around 40mm. The Yacht-Master range is designed for professional sailors. The Yacht-Master II was where Rolex really started to explore what unique features they could offer to sailors, versus the Submariner style Yacht-Master I didn't really offer that much for them. It's actually one of the most complicated Rolexes in the range. However, when you first look at it, they've designed it so nicely and cleanly that it doesn't appear too complex. The Yacht-Master II has a very special flyback chronograph, which we'll come on to in a moment. But first, let's take a look specifically at what sailors would use this for. Rolex actually named the chronograph inside this piece the Regatta Chronograph, and that's because it's designed for sailing regattas. Before each race, a sailor has about 10 minutes to prepare. So Rolex wanted to create a piece where sailors could time that 10 minutes. Let's take a little look at how to set the chronograph up on this piece. The Yacht-Master chronograph is very different to the Daytona chronograph because on the Daytona we're looking at elapsed time, whereas on the Yacht-Master we're looking at countdown time, so how much time is remaining. So we start by unscrewing the crown. Once we've unscrewed the crown, we can rotate the bezel anti-clockwise. This bezel is completely different to a GMT and Submariner bezel in the fact that we don't necessarily use it for timing things or using it to tell the time. It's just an additional aid, but more so, its main function is actually communicating with the movement. It's like another connection like the crown to the movement. The bezel only rotates 90 degrees versus the 360 degrees we see on the other pieces. So once we twist the bezel, we can then press the reset pusher, which is the pusher at 4 o'clock. And you can see that locks in there. We can then turn the crown and set the desired number of minutes we'd like to count down. So let's say, for example, 8 minutes for our countdown until our race starts. So we set 8 on the little triangular red hand, and then we rotate the bezel back clockwise, and you can see that reset pusher at 4 o'clock pops out again. Then we can screw back the crown, so the watch is now watertight again. And now we're all set to use the chronograph. So you can see now when I press the start stop button, we can see the chronograph seconds hand start turning. And if you look closely at the triangular hand showing our minutes, that also starts moving as well. As I previously mentioned, this is a flyback chronograph. So while the chronograph is active, we can press the restart button, and depending on where that chronograph seconds hand is on the dial, it will determine where that small triangular hand will go to. So if we're on the right hand side of the watch, it will return to whatever minute you were previously on. So the left hand side will skip on, so fly forward. So your right hand side gives you fly back and your left hand side gives you fly forward. And the reason they wanted to do this was, say there's a large clock or a large timer for the race visible to all people in the race, and it's reading maybe 3 minutes 50 and your watch is reading 4 minutes. You can then reset your chronograph so you're perfectly in tune with the official timing system at the race. The bezel and crown bit of the process is a little bit fiddly. Maybe not something you want to be doing just before you start a race because it's a little bit time consuming in itself. It's a nice feature. I think like the Daytona, not many people are going to use it for what it's meant for, but it's nice to have that sort of history and design behind the piece. The pushers are so much better in this compared to a Daytona, in the fact that you don't have to keep unscrewing them. It's much more intuitive and easy to use. If you're timing food or an egg or whatever, then you can set the time on your countdown and you know exactly when it's finished. So this is perhaps a little bit more of a useful chronograph for everyday use. But the Daytona is much easier to set up. So let's take a look at some of the other features of this watch. The clasp is the standard Oyster clasp. And we've got our Easy Link where we can extend it out 5mm and then retract it back in again, which is great for every day. If your wrist starts to expand in warmer weather, it just allows you to open it up a little bit, which is a nice feature. Oyster clasps, as always, really nicely engineered, very, very simple, and they just feel very solid. Moving on to the bracelet, it's the standard Oyster bracelet. We've got polished center links and then brushed outer links. This one looks really nice in the yellow gold. Very classic sports Rolex bracelet, can't really go wrong. I really like the bezel on this watch. The blue is such a cool color with the gold. The bezel sort of magnifying what's going on that smaller inner ring on the dial for the countdown 10 minutes. I like the way they've put blue on that one as well, so you kind of know exactly what's what on the dial. And then you've got your red accents from the chronograph seconds and then chronograph minutes. I think that's really smart. I love that triangle hand. I think that's such a cool look. It almost looks like the sail of a yacht. Then you've got your small seconds that's got this sort of gold bezel going on, which looks really cool. Matches the watch, obviously. It's got almost like a brushed, channeled effect with a little navy hand. The white is such a cool look. It's almost like a satin finish. It looks like the side of a boat. It's really smart. You really do feel like you're looking at something nautical and like almost like a gauge on a boat. And then the blue is obviously reminiscent of the ocean as well. The dial is definitely the best bit about this watch. I think it's such a cool dial. It's perfectly aligned, everything looks really smart together. In terms of weight and size of this watch, it is a big watch. It's more like a sea dweller in terms of case size versus the old Yacht-Master being more like a Submariner. It doesn't sit crazy big on the wrist. I think that's because the depth helps to make it look not so massive. It's not crazy heavy. On some watches you can feel like the weight is spread evenly across the bracelet and the case. You really feel it's very top heavy on this watch. And that's because the case is so huge. This is really the ultimate Yacht-Master, I feel, the yellow gold. Would I own this watch? Probably not. But that's purely because I have smaller wrists and I don't really wear watches on bracelets. So this doesn't necessarily suit me as well as other watches do. Like the Daytona suits me better because it's slightly smaller. We have a lot of people asking for these, especially the steel one. That's always in massive demand. People love that one because it's a great everyday sports watch and it looks smart as well at the same time. Let us know what you think of this piece in the comments. Would you own one? Would you get it in the yellow gold, or what metal would you buy it in? Let us know what other watches you want to see, and don't forget to subscribe and watch our other videos. Thanks guys.